Former Yankee Jim Leyritz with Armen and Levack, 104.5 The Team, every Wednesday at 5:15, thanks to Red Wing Shoes. And Jim, General Manager Brian Cashman says that CC Sabathia will not go to the bullpen because he is still filling into his role and he's still adapting this season. If you were the manager of the Yankees, would you put CC Sabathia in the bullpen?
Well, I'd have to consider it. I'd have to consider how ineffective he's been. One of the things that kind of alarms me that I've been watching since it starts is right when he gets about 45, 50 pitches, he starts getting hit again. And that's a concern, I would think, for Girardi and to them, to the other guys, that maybe this is a time that we consider moving him into the bullpen to where he might be more effective for us. That way, you don't really disrupt Warren that much.
Now you bring up Warren. So even though Warren's been moved to the bullpen, you think Warren should stay in the rotation and that CC should go to the bullpen?
I think it's got to be maybe an option. I mean, if CC continues another start or two to look pretty decent in the beginning, but then all of a sudden start giving it up after 45, 50 pitches, then I think it's got to be something they have to start to consider.
Jim, is it because the amount of money that they're paying CC Sabathia and the amount of money that, quite frankly, they're overpaying CC Sabathia, is that a good enough reason to not put him in the bullpen? Do you understand that?
I can see that. I can see two things. I can see a guy like CC Sabathia, possibly turning it around quickly. I think Joe kind of had that feeling. I also know that CC is kind of looked at by that staff as the anchor guy, and for maybe disrupting that isn't the best mental picture that Joe Girardi wants to portray. At the same time, it's got to go back to what we've always said: what's best for this team, and what's best for the team could be moving into the bullpen.
Jim, as a player, do you look at an organization like the Yankees and a manager like Joe Girardi who, wouldn't move Jeter out of the 2 spot in the lineup, not considering taking CC out of that starting rotation, even though, it looks like for what you want on the field, those would be better moves. As a player, do you look at that and go, well, at least I know they're loyal and I'm happy to play for them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the fine line that you have to walk is, what do I give these guys as far as what they've earned? And CC has earned at least another start or two. But again, like I said, if it stays consistent, when he's giving up these runs and he's starting to fade quickly, they have to consider, possibly like doing again what's best for the team. And I think most guys would look at it going, okay, they gave him an opportunity or two. And one of the things we don't know about is we don't know about what they're talking about in that clubhouse. We don't know whether Joe Girardi, during the pitchers and catchers meeting, have suggested a couple things or said a few things. So as far as maybe if I'm Joe Girardi and I'm thinking about that, I might be calling CC into my office and laying the groundwork and saying, hey, listen, this is something that we got to start thinking of. If this continues, what do you think? And give him maybe that kind of a benefit of the doubt and kind of just start putting that into the back of his mind. And that could do two things. That could get him to work a little bit harder as a starter, or it could say, it could give him the outlet of saying, you know what, Joe, I don't have 150 pitches or 120 pitches in me anymore. Maybe this is a better move.
Jim Leyritz, former Yankees catcher, 2-time World Series champion, joins Armen and Levack every Wednesday at 5:15, thanks to Red Wing Shoes. Jim, you were at the game last night. The Yankees lose 2-1 despite a great performance. Again, Ivan Nova, 2 impressive performances in a row now, coming back from Tommy John surgery. What have we learned so far from Ivan Nova after not seeing him pitch in over a year?
Well, one of the things I was watching for last night is velocity, and whether or not velocity increased or decreased or how much it was different. And I'm telling you, he was still throwing 95. To me, that's a good sign. To me, he looks like he's fully healthy and fully back. He was able to throw all of his pitches. That's another thing that I look for is whether or not he's using all of his pitches, and he did. And again, for the second straight outing, he's been pretty impressive. So I think the Yankees have to be very encouraged to a point where Brian Cashman might say, listen, this is better than making a trade. We got a number 1, number 2 starter back in our rotation, and we feel pretty good about the way things are going right now.
When you look at that starting rotation, do you think they can stand pat and still have a effect on the AL East?
I think so. You know, my bigger concern right now is the bats, the offense. You know, Brett Gardner's on fire, but anybody else, you know, basically 7, 8, and 9 in that lineup is an automatic out. And, you know, they've got to find something there. You know, once in a while, when Drew's in the lineup, he might step into something. But other than that, you know, it was, you know, interesting talking to George King last night. You know, he was talking about, you know, the Yankees might have to consider putting Drew at shortstop and giving Perella, or whatever his name is, a little bit more time at second base. That it would actually help.
Jim Leyritz, former Yankees catcher with Armen and Levack, 104.5 The Team. You're home for New York sports.
Jim, last night you mentioned the bats. Carlos Beltran has a rib cage injury. No word right now how long he'll be out. He was actually kind of warming up a little bit. Is this a situation where maybe you take that the guy that everybody's talking about, Aaron Judge, who just got to AAA, and rush him to the bigs, or could that do more harm than good?
I spoke with Reggie, and Reggie was actually on his way, I think either today or tomorrow, to Columbus to go look at Aaron Judge and kind of give, I think, the Yankees an idea of whether or not he feels like this kid might be ready. So that could be something that's in the works.
Wow, that's interesting. Jim Leyritz dropping the Reggie Jackson bomb. That's sweet, hanging out with Reggie Jackson. So the Yankees are going to go to the minor league level and check out Aaron Judge. Reggie Jackson's going to check out Aaron Judge and see if this guy is ready. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think so. I think they want, you know, Reggie, you know, this is kind of what Reggie does for them is he goes in and he looks at some of the minor league kids and some of the kids that maybe they're getting ready to make a move with, and whether or not he feels like they're ready. And you know what? It's one of those things that in today's game, that jump from a lot of times AAA is not even. Most guys don't even play AAA anymore. It's basically a AA jump. So AAA is more for the veteran guys and for guys that are just filling. I think this is an opportunity that the Yankees might have right now to say, you know what, Aaron, this is not going to be a permanent move, but for the next couple of weeks, you're going to get an opportunity to see if you can do this on the big stage in New York.
Jim Leyritz, former Yankee with Armen and Levack, at the Yankees at Angels game last night in Anaheim. And Jim, we're at a place here. We're almost halfway through the season at the All-Star break. The Yankees are in third place in the division, only by a half game. And in the same sense, they're a half game out of fourth place as well and falling back. Do you get a sense when talking to the Yankees that right now this time is very pivotal, that the decisions they make right now will either propel them into the postseason or keep them out of it? Is that the kind of feeling when talking to guys like Reggie and George King and Girardi last night?
Well, yeah, and I think the idea right now is you have 31 days till the deadline, and you know what? Maybe a couple of these guys they think in their organization might be ready. You know what? We give them a chance, and we have 31 days to figure that out. And if we need to make a move come the deadline, now we're able to do it. I think that's kind of what right now the mindset of most teams going into the month of July are saying, okay, what do we have? What can we do? And what kind of moves can we make to see if some of these kids are ready?
Former Yankee Jim Leyritz with Armen and Levack. And Jim, with you being in Anaheim last night, the national headline in baseball is Angels general manager Jerry Dipoto being out and walking away from the Angels general manager gig. What is the latest on that? What are you hearing out of the Angels organization with this bizarre, this crazy story?
You know, the relationship between Dipoto and Scioscia has not been strong from day one. You know, in the beginning, it was who's going to go first. And I think with this latest episode, you know, when Dipoto came down and kind of just totally embarrassed Scioscia and the other coaches by doing what he did and addressing the team saying, you know, if they're not going to give these reports and things to you, we're going to do it. And really kind of making them look bad. I think that was the final straw there. It was one of the things that I said earlier when we talked about this was, that's the one thing that I do know as far as the Yankees go with Girardi and Cashman. There is a very strong connection there. These two do communicate with each other, and that's the only way that it could possibly work. as if your general manager and your manager are on the same page.
Is that maybe an underheralded aspect of the Yankees, especially with the success that they had when you were on this team in the 90s, where it wasn't just the manager, not just the players, but it was the relationship from everybody all the way up through the channels? Would you agree with that?
You can't really compare anything going on nowadays, because when George was there, it went through George or nobody. And the bottom line was, if George wanted somebody, he went down to Joe Torre and said, "This is what I'm doing, and you're going to figure out how to work with it." and that it was pretty clear. And I think that understanding was there. Over the years, it's changed a little bit with George being gone, but I do think that Cashman and Girardi have had a pretty good working relationship. As far as when they make these moves or they make these changes, they've communicated pretty clearly with each other. And I think that's a positive thing for them.
Jim Leyritz, former Yankees catcher, two-time World Series champion, every Wednesday at 5:15 with Armen and Levack. Thanks to Red Wing Shoes. And Jim, man, it was good talking to you. I enjoy you being at the games and picking up some scoop. And as always, have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll do it again next Wednesday, my friend.
Well, and I'm going to have a lot more scoop for you next Wednesday, because I will be at every home. I'm going up to the homestand. I will be in New York this whole week.
Nice.
So we'll have a lot more to talk about, as far as a lot more insider information.
It's like Jim Leyritz is working at an ice cream stand because he's got the scoop.
Oh, dear.
You like that?
I like it.
Thank you, Jim. I need you every now and then. I need more support sometimes in my crappy jokes.
And by the way,
oh boy,
I wanted to make sure that your new child makes sure that he got his mom's lips and not yours.
You know what? Here's the scary part, man. With both deliveries, both of my kids, as soon as they take the kid out of the tummy, the first thing I hear is, "Oh, wow, he looks a lot like Dad." And in both situations, I have dropped an S word in the OR on both, and I've been embarrassed about it both times. You would think the second time I would learn, but I haven't, man, because every time somebody tells me that, I just sink down in my chair like I could have done so much better. Jim, thanks, man, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, guys. Good talking to you.
There he goes, Jim Leyritz. Thanks to Red Wing Shoes in Clifton Park, presented by our buddies over there. We're just like the Yankees. Excellence is a standard. Visit them at cliftonpark.redwingshoestore.com. They can fit your feet, your job, your hobby, and your wallet. Red Wing Shoes. Thanks for bringing us Jim Leyritz every Wednesday.